Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Cabinet meeting. I'm glad to see you all here on this not particularly cheerful, sunny day. But before we begin, can I just read out that about the fire evacuation? There are no planned fire alarms scheduled at this time, and therefore, if the fire alarm should go off, please make your way out of the building via the nearest fire exit to the car park beside the Windmill Public House. And also, during the meeting, could you please ensure that the microphone directly in front of you is switched on and logged in? Please do not remove the microphone from its set position, and when speaking, ensure the microphone is directly in front of you and not up to the side or up high. That's just kind of to make sure that the meeting, we're able to conduct it and everybody can hear you, particularly those that are online. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. We've got a busy schedule, and the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence today?
No apologies received.
Thank you very much. And the second item is disclosures of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest that fall under the items on the agenda at all that anybody wants to declare? No disclosures of interest. We now move on to the minutes, and this is to confirm and sign the minutes of the meeting that was held on the 13th of January 2025. Do we have anybody that wants to raise anything on those minutes, any corrections or anything? If not, could I have somebody that proposes that they accepted Liz Coles, Councillor Coles and Councillor Grocott to second on those minutes? Are you all happy that those minutes are accepted as written?
Agreed.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Moving on, Part A, matters to be referred to Council, resources portfolio. The first item is the Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Annual Investment Strategy, pages 9 to 60, and this falls under the portfolio of Councillor Curtis. Councillor Curtis, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. First, I'd like to thank, as always, Katie Sylvester for the report and appendices. The summary Treasury Management Strategy Statement details the expected activities of the Treasury function in the financial year 2025-26, including the prudential indicators in relation to Treasury Management 25-26 and beyond. And the annual investment strategy details the investment instruments available to the Council and proposes which of these instruments the Council utilises. And it comes with the following recommendations, which I'm sure we have all read. I'll just make a few further comments. Point 1.1, the report provides details of the 2025-26 Treasury Management Strategy Statement, recommends the borrowing limits and presents the prudential indicators for 25-26. 1.2, the Council has an obligation when considering the budget to take into account prudential indicators. The key aims of these indicators is to ensure that capital investment plans of the local authorities are affordable, prudent and sustainable. I think that's just worth reiterating, given the state that some local authorities have got themselves into by perhaps making investments that are less prudent and sustainable. The Treasury Management Strategy Statement 2.1, in accordance with the Treasury Management Code of Practice 25-26, statement needs to be agreed by the Council, and this is detailed in Appendix 1, pages 15 to 50. And 3.1, in order to comply with the legislation, the Council has a requirement to set prudential indicators in accordance with the SIPFA Prudential Code, even if the Council decides not to borrow. At the moment, I don't think we have any borrowing requirement. The evidence base, the report has been prepared using the independent professional advice provided by Link Group and with specific reference to the Council's current and proposed revenue and capital programme. In light of current uncertainty surrounding the future, I'll just mention some of the items on page 18. The main requirements of the Prudential Code relating to service and commercial investments. 1, the risks associated with service and commercial investments should be proportionate to their financial capacity, i.e. losses could be absorbed without unmanageable detriment. 2, an authority must not borrow to invest for the primary purpose of commercial return. 3, it is not prudent for local authorities to make any investment or spending decision that will increase the CFR, capital finance requirement, and may lead to new borrowing. And 4, I think this is worth noting, an annual review should be conducted to evaluate whether commercial investments should be sold to release funds to finance new capital expenditure. There is a slight amendment in the options available to the Cabinet on page 11, 6, 6.1 and 6.2. I'm afraid there is a slight typo here. It should note, 6.1 should say that the 25-26 Treasury Strategy Statement Appendix 1 is approved, amended, or its limits amended as appropriate, and that 6.2 should also say that the annual investment strategy for 25-26 is approved or amended as appropriate. So I'm sorry, I didn't see those when I first saw the report, but I picked that up yesterday, as did Natalie, as did Councillor Gist as well. So those are the options available to the Cabinet, and I would like to make the recommendations 1 to 5 for Council.
I'll ask a couple of questions, if I might. Just one, the capital prudential indicators, they're not to be used as a comparative performance between authorities, but to measure performance over time at the same authority. So presumably, you know, we have to produce these year on year, but we're not, no way do we ever compare ourselves against others, which is, I think, you know, a bit unusual, really, not to be able to compare against others. But that is the rule from the government, I presume, on that one.
Mr. Burrell, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Curtis. No, the purpose of this report is to tell the committee what our intentions regarding Treasury management is for the forthcoming year. It's not to be a benchmarking exercise.
And I think that's quite important, Leader, because the whole point of the prudential indicators was, as Councillor Curtis mentioned in his introduction, that this authority believes that the level of borrowing that this council is going to undertake is affordable. And that follows, those of us with long enough memories, issues that happened historically when there wasn't such constraints. Historically, before that, though, local authorities were told each year how much they could borrow, and we used to receive credit approvals that we could borrow up to that particular level. This is part of the freedoms under that particular regime that we, though, have to assess what our borrowing is. So it's relatively irrelevant about other things. There was just one point that I did make a face when Councillor Curtis was introducing. We do have a borrowing requirement. We have capital financing requirement, and that's within the report. That identifies the council's underlying need for borrowing, but we don't have any external debt because we use our own internal cash reserves in lieu of externally borrowing. I just wanted to make that clarification. Thank you.
And just another question, if I might. The approved countries for investments, it seems that the UK is one of the lower ones for approval for investments. The preferred investments, countries with a higher rating, you know, Australia, etc. Is that an indicator of current UK situation, you know, with kind of interest rates, etc.?
This has come from Link, and I imagine they are in the best position to look at these ratings, and that's unfortunately where we are.
Okay, have we got any other questions that anybody wants to raise? Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
I'm glad to see that our financial prudence continues. It's the Conservative legacy, of course. However, what I would say is that as we move towards devolution and what that is going to bring us, I do feel that actually we need to be very mindful, as Councillor June had said, we don't compare this to anybody else. I do think, however, that we're going to be moving into territory where we are going to be required, or we should be requiring to see these Treasury management strategies and statements from from other neighbouring councils, wherever they may be, and that we scrutinise these very, very carefully, because on the backflip of that, because of what is mentioned here or spoken about and here for us to read, is the fact that we are in a very strong position. That makes us, could potentially make us very popular with our neighbours as well. So we need to be very mindful and learn the lessons of the fact that we did not amalgamate with Warwick and Leamington previously for their financial reasons. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, thank you, Councillor Wally-Hoggins. I think this administration is very well aware of the relatively advantageous position that our finances are in, and certainly as we move through the process of looking for other authorities with whom we will partner, there will be a great deal of work to be done to ensure, and this administration is very mindful that we should ensure that the assets that we have and the reserves that we have are invested to improve the residents' lives in this district.
Councillor Coucher.
I thoroughly agree with that statement. The point I wanted to raise was really about the loss of the rural services grant, which I think is a serious matter for a rural district like this. That has been very useful money in the past, and losing that grant is a significant blow, and I'm very pleased that we're making representations about that.
And just to clarify to those, to everybody, a letter has gone to the Minister from myself as leader about the Rural Services Grant, and I actually supported the Rural Service Network on there. Oh, yeah, it's relevant to the next item. Okay. So moving on, actually, Councillor Crump, and then I also found, before Councillor Crump comes in, I actually found some of the information that was on page 43 was quite interesting about the fact that we are having real problems with being able to find construction employment, for example, and some of the other financial information that's on page 42 and 43 about the economic background is a bit worrying, quite and concerning, both the past over the last 10 years and current. Councillor, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Councillor Janet. Yeah, just very quickly, I know Mr Buckland mentioned we're doing internal borrowing from our own resources to fund our projects, which again makes sense. It'd be interesting to see what the savings were, the differential between the two, because obviously if we'd obviously borrow a higher rate, but obviously we would be losing investment interest on the money we invested. So be just interested to see how much that is, on a relatively regular basis. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Mr Burrell will be able to give us those figures.
Okay, if we've got no more questions, we do have some recommendations to Council. They are on page 9, and there is 5 recommendations. Could I have a proposer for those recommendations and a seconder? Councillor Curtis, are you going to propose those? And who will second them? Councillor Coles will second them. Are you all in favour of those recommendations going to Council? All agreed? Thank you very much indeed for your attention to that detail. Moving on to the revenue and capital budget, pages 61 to 130. This is also under the portfolio of Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this paper is to set out the proposed revenue and capital budget for 2025-26 to Council for approval at its meeting on 24th of February 2025. So there are 2 recommendations to the Cabinet: that the proposals for fees and charges detailed at Appendix 5, which is pages 79 to 124, or a suitable amended version be approved. And secondly, that the non-domestic rates provisional contributions for 25-26, as detailed in the NNDR 1 form at Appendix 7, which I believe is on the desks this morning, be approved. And there are 3 recommendations to Council: that the proposed medium-term capital programme detailed at Appendix 4, page 77, or a suitable amended version be agreed, that the proposed revised medium-term revenue budget, detailed at Appendix 6, page 125, or a suitable amended version be approved, and that the level of council tax be set at £169.12 for a bandy property for 2025-26. It's a lengthy and important report. I'd like to thank Mr Burrell for the diligence with which it's been prepared, and I'm sure members have read it with care. I'd like to draw attention to a couple of sections. The MTFS, Appendix 6, page 124, has been updated. Mr Burrell's advice is that the working balance reserve at the end of the current MTFS 28-29 should be no less than £3 million, and as you'll see in the revised version, this is now projected to be £3,001,000. The difference between the MTFS originally circulated and the updated version is mainly due to national insurance. The expected additional costs to Stratford District Council of NI had been budgeted at, or costed at, £311,000 per year, and it was expected that this would be funded in full by central government. However, we now know that funding from central government is only £150,000 per year. So if this continues, there will be a shortfall over the MTFS of approximately £805,000, which is significant. Mr Burrell has increased the use of funds from the Business Equalisation Reserve in 28-29, increasing that from 2.3 million to 3.1 million to make up this shortfall, which is more than he had hoped to take from that reserve. And there is also some doubt over whether the additional NI support from government will continue at the same level or may be subsumed into total government grant and perhaps thereby reduced by other means. So I think there is an added pressure there, and it's an added uncertainty into the future. So that's the updated MTFS. The Stratford District Council has seen its funding from central government decline over the past 5 years by 17%, whilst the council has been subject to inflation in the order of 24% over the same period, so there are real pressures there. And given future uncertainty and the latest news from central government that local authorities will be expected to cover the additional costs of reorganisation, we must be prudent, but at the same time, we should invest to secure the best future services for our residents for however long we remain in administration. Council has implemented a range of initiatives to generate income and deliver savings to meet this challenge, but we've always consulted the public on the priority areas to help inform these decisions. And we now have the results of the latest public consultation, which we received on Friday. In total, 449 responses were received, which is an increase of 261% over the previous year. And I think this is due to very hard work by Simon and Helen to get this result. And I think this increase in participation does show an increased engagement by residents with their administration and confidence that their voice is being heard. And as a result of this consultation, Cabinet will be pleased to see broad support for many of the proposals in the budget, including support for rural communities, residents most hard hit by cost of living crisis, new initiatives to support health and well-being, and continued commitment to tackle the effects of climate change. I'm just going to highlight a few. Women's Aid, domestic violence project support of £30,000, 73% in favour. Community group bids, £250,000 to improve community facilities, 72%. Housing to rent, £2.5 million to expand the council's housing, own housing, and reduce expenditure on temporary accommodation and offer additional emergency accommodation for victims of domestic violence, 66% approval. Screening programme in partnership with the Grey Fulford Trust, programme focusing on prevention of prostate cancer, 63%. The Avon Hydro Scheme, 1.2 million to produce fully renewable energy for local residents or business. This has been the subject of considerable debate. And we agree a robust business plan must be produced to provide the evidence for this. But I was delighted to see that 61% of residents are in favour of this proposal. And Climate Change Fund, an additional £520,000, 53% in favour. There is a divergence of views in the public, from there is no climate crisis, just climate change, to residents who strongly support any schemes aimed at improving environmental sustainability. And I'm very pleased climate change is high on the agenda. The survey demonstrates clearly that residents support our commitment in tackling climate change. Finally, the budget proposes a below rate of inflation increase to council tax of 3%, which for an average home represents an additional 42 pence per month to district council. In summary, I believe this draft budget, or this budget proposal, is clear, achievable, financially sound, and is focusing on delivering the services residents have identified that they need from us. I'm happy to take any questions, propose this report and the recommendations to Cabinet. Thank you, Leader.
Can I just clarify a couple of things? We have been told in 1.2 that we've only received a one-year settlement for this year. I know that we've had this one-year settlement now for, is it 7 or 9 years? I'm not sure whether it's 7 years or 9 years. But what indications are we now getting from government that there genuinely will be a multi-year settlement coming forward?
I'll defer to Mr. Burrell, but I believe the indications, such as they are that next year will be at least a 2 or possibly 3 year settlement. Richard, you?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Curtis. Yeah, the government have said that from 26, 27 there will be a multi-year settlement. They haven't said whether that's 2, 3 or 4 years, but there is a spending review also being undertaken, so the way money is allocated is being looked at as well. So there will be more certainty for at least a couple of years from that year.
But also we've had this indication about the Rural Services Grant not being supported, and a couple of others. Some things have been supported, but there's still some lack of clarity over exactly what components will go into our settlement for next year.
Yes, I believe that's correct. And as I mentioned before, the additional support for national insurance is in for this year. There is no, Richard, I don't believe that there's any guarantee of that.
No, there's no guarantee. There's currently a consultation going on regarding how that funding will be allocated from 26-27. That closes on the 12th, and I'll be making a representation back about how that those proposed methods of funding will affect this council.
Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any questions that anybody wants to raise? Councillor Woolley-Hoggins.
Yes. Do we have any information, please, on where the respondents to this survey lived? You know, where most of them were living, and do we have any indication of who they voted for? Also, in addition to that, do we know how many officers from the council completed this consultation, and how many party members? Because actually 449 respondents is a very low number. When you then take out the number of district councillors as well, it's quite reduced. So what I'm trying to glean is, were there more respondents from the towns, or was it equally spread out? Do we have that information, please?
Oh, sorry.
Can I just say that, you know, everybody is entitled to respond as a resident, if you are a resident. But the idea that, you know, that somehow or other officers of the council or people who work for the council have been, you know, this is genuinely our residents. There is indication of who these people are, but it is subject to GDPR.
I only asked the question, Councillor Junod, as to where the spread of those that completed the survey lived. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Woolley-Hoggins. Yes, the information, I believe you'll find it on page 7 of the consultation results. 96% are residents of Stratford-on-Avon District Council area. 1% were parish or town councillors. 0% as a strict Stratford District Councillor, actually 2. On behalf of a parish or town council, 0% or 1 person. On behalf of a business in the Stratford District, 25 people, 6%. So, as I say, there's a very clear breakdown. So I think you can draw your own conclusions from that. It's a very broad cross-section. I don't believe that these results are weighted. I'd need to check that with Simon. No, David, yeah. So they're not weighted to take into account.
In response, Chair, to the question about the geographical spread within the district, I'll have to take that question away and come back to the committee on that. I don't know about that question.
But it is clear that only 2 district councillors actually responded to the consultation.
The reason that it's important is to make sure that the comms strategy that we've all spoken so greatly about over the last 12 months is working, in that it's getting out to the rural locals. Thank you.
Councillor Crump, do you want to come in?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think the other thing we haven't touched, of course, is age. Look at question 5. What was your age last birthday? Well, mine was 60 my last birthday, so I'll fall into the 60, 69 category. But when you look at that figure, only 24% of people were under 50 responded to the survey. And I'm sure our population in Stratford District Council has more than 25% people under 50. So it is quite concerning why those people haven't engaged. So that's one thing I'd like us to consider.
I do know that 47% of the population is over 50, definitely. I know that figure.
So, but there's still a disproportionate amount of under 50s haven't responded. And even though I could fib on my age, I still wouldn't get under the under 50s. I don't think there's too many around the table would, but Lewis, I'm sure you're very right. And you, Natalie, of course. You were the second one I was going to mention. He said briefly. So that's quite interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And I think I was copied in a letter from, as all members of the Cabinet were, from Stratford Climate Action Group, Extinction Rebellion. I'll get what they're called. Stratford Climate Action, SCA/SR. And they had made some comments about the... I think they said they were also extremely frustrated by the nature of this online budget consultation. Some of us have been calling for more meaningful public consultation in the climate's proposal for a long time. By contrast, the current consultation provides the public with a set of proposals with very little information on which to base an informed decision, and which the council has evidently already decided it intends to pursue. So just some feedback. So obviously, I don't think I would usually line, Extinction Rebellion and Conservatives are usually sometimes not always on the same page when it comes to information. So it's quite interesting to see somebody from a different party, different organisation saying that they've got concerns about it. So I just thought I'd raise some of this. And it's quite interesting to note as well, just having a quick look through some of the points that Councillor Curtis raised regarding the, on question 1, the strongly agree, disagree, etc. It's quite interesting that the bottom 8, is it 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 proposals had less than 50% approval rate. So just some thoughts on the matter. It'd be interesting to hear what Councillor Curtis' thoughts are.
Councillor Curtis, you want to come in? And I think Councillor Coucher, did you want to come in? Yes.
No. Yes,
no, Councillor Adams afterwards.
May have less than 50%, but if you look at the percentages of people who disagree or strongly disagree, it is still lower than those who do agree. So data can prove, statistics, damn lies and statistics. I think we need to be very careful how we use the data that these surveys produce. And I take Councillor Crump's point that public consultation is very difficult. It's very difficult to engage, particularly with those groups who are harder to engage with. I think we all know that people who are younger have busier lives, they have less time. We need to try and find ways of engaging with those groups. But nonetheless, I think it's the fact that we have increased the number of participants considerably over previous years is a measure of the success of this public consultation. I'm sure it can be improved, and we'd look to do that in future. Thank you.
The next person I have on the list is Councillor Adam, then I have Councillor Grocott, Councillor Coucher and Councillor Passingham.
Thank you. Yes, just to the point on comms, I think you're absolutely right that we do need to sort of make sure that there's a fair representation across the district. That's certainly something we strive to. And in terms of the age demographics, as Councillor Curtis has alluded to, that's something that is always going to be a challenge. But I think the comms strategy that we've got certainly tries to disseminate the information that Council has through a number of means to try and reach out to every demographic. And just to Councillor Wally Hoggins' point, I don't believe we have any record of who people voted for, and that shouldn't be something that we consider as part of the way in which we disseminate information or reach out to people's communications. We reach out to everybody in our district fairly and equally.
Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, thank you for presenting all the different items on the budget. I just wanted to draw attention to the item that's number 5th in popularity, the screening programme in partnership with the Graham Fulford Trust. Just a point of clarification there. This is not just a screening programme for prostate cancer, because just in case you hadn't noticed, I haven't got one. This is going to be a screening programme for blood screening, which will cover prostate cancer for men, but also diabetes and cholesterol screening for women. And this is part of our ongoing programme to promote the health and well-being of our community in the Stratford district, following on from our Everyone Active outreach worker last year, which we provided for, which has also provided benefits in the villages and smaller towns of the district. Thank you.
And next, Councillor Coucher.
I just wanted to raise the issue in relation to our support for business and employment within the district, which I think is extremely important. Disappointing, I think, results here, but I do think in terms of timing, this is the right thing to do. This morning, I heard on the radio that record reduction in job opportunities available. We may well be going into more difficult economic times going forward for the future, and I'm very pleased that this council is thinking ahead in terms of how we support business and how we support the general economy in the area. There's some very, very important work to be done on our high streets and other areas which the Economic Development Officer will be extremely important for.
And before I bring Councillor Passingham in, on the business rates paper, which is on the non-domestic ratepayers consultative panel, which is on page 75, they raised this and had a discussion about the 100,000 for economic recovery reserve, the 100,000 towards regeneration of high streets, and the funding for the economic development officer. But they did also raise the question about the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and where that would be administered from. So they were obviously aware of this. Councillor Passingham.
How can the council justify spending £250,000 on a feasibility study for a massive new road around Stratford, that just in the construction of it, with the concrete that goes into it and the earth moving, will produce thousands of tons of carbon emissions, will destroy whole areas of countryside, and it will be totally against climate change policy, it will be against the policies such as reducing car use, encouraging active travel, and encouraging sustainable travel, mainly by using public transport and rail. And so, yeah, I think it's totally unjustified.
Councillor Coucher, this comes more under your portfolio than anything else.
We are, as an authority, under enormous pressure to achieve economic growth within the district, but also to accommodate an enormous number of new housing. And indeed, we're out to consultation at the moment on the South Warwickshire local plan. One of the areas that in the current core strategy is for growth is clearly the Long Marston area and Meon Vale, where we have done half of the development. We still have some way to go, but in terms of serving that, we need proper road access. At the moment, we only have 2 bridges over the River Avon in Stratford, one of which is medieval, the other one is a former railway bridge, and frankly, the environmental problems in Stratford are very, very significant. The building of this road, I think, is going to be absolutely crucial if we're going to see proper growth within the district to meet the government's requirement. This is not the Southwestern Relief Road. This is actually looking at something which would be much more sensitive to the environment and to local people. It's something which, frankly, the County Council ought to be doing, but they can't do it. We need to do it because we need to have a coherent South Warwickshire local plan to present at the public inquiry, and we need to have evaluated this. So I think it's a very, very prudent step for us to be actually investing in this, so we've got a proper study.
Councillor Passingham, you want to come back on that one?
Yeah. Well, I just think that the council ought to reconsider this. It's going to be the most important, biggest opportunity to reduce carbon emissions is not to build this road. And there's already been a lot of development out at Long Marston. The council could investigate other places to build houses. It could investigate other ways of alternatives to providing growth, but good growth, environmental growth, growth that benefits people rather than making more people car dependent.
Can I thank you? And that will be part of the debate that will be at the council. This is not done and dusted. This is making sure that we have the data. One of the things that we have to do, and this is not the South Western Relief Road, one of the things that we have to do is make the case to government. If government is saying that we have to take these kind of the numbers of houses, then we have to be able to provide ways in which people can move around. Given that there is no rail, given that there is no adequate road, then we have to have the data to be able to put to government. That perhaps part of this, having the data, is being able to say to government, actually, we can't take the number of houses because. So we've got to have the data to be done to be able to show both the pros and the cons of the numbers that are going into the South Warwickshire local ham. What we've had in the past has been houses added onto communities around the district, like Stratford, like Ulster, like Bidford, like Salford Priors, etc., but without being large enough to be able to take be able to fund the infrastructure that is required. For example, in my ward, I have a school that has not received a single penny in Section 106 of SIL as a result, despite the fact that development has grown at Ulster. There's been development at Salford Priors. There's been development at Bidford. And so, what we've had is a market that has not delivered for people in this area because they've not been able to get the infrastructure, whether it's GP surgery, schools, etc. We have to be able to make the case, both pro and con, of options. If we are not to use the Meon Vale, then we have to be able to come up with the other things. We have to be able to show the data. We have to do the study in order to be able to produce the data. And that is one of the things that why we, that this is. If it shows that we cannot get the government to fund some of the infrastructure that's required, we may have to think again. But we've got to be able to produce the data and do the research in order to be able to put that argument to government. And that is the basis of being able to put this money forward. It is something that has to be done as part of the South Warwickshire local plan to make sure that when we get to the inspector, that we've got economic evidence and proper solid evidence to be able to say either we support or do not support at examination this particular location or other locations. You've got to be able to have that evidence to be able to put it forward. And that is the justification for doing the study. Thank you. Councillor Crump, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Yeah, I agree that a lot of things being discussed at the moment are probably best for the budget debate later in the month, so I think that's reasonable. Just again, reading some of the comments, please make sure there's not any duplication of service or expenditure that's always being offered by WCC. I would add on to that other partners, which I think is fair and reasonable. Councillor Curtis mentioned there was a big increase in terms of numbers of responding, which, you know, the figures are there, you know, in black and white. But again, it seemed to be a bigger increase in the demographics of over 50. So again, if we're trying to get an increase, we would have rather had a bigger increase in the under 50s responding than the over 50s. And obviously, I'm in that second category, so I don't want to discriminate against the over 50s. But again, if you can do that. And again, I'll take on Councillor Curtis's point about the Rural Services Grant. Where is it? What's the Councillor Curtis Rural Service Grant? You know which one I mean, the 600,000. And the National Insurance, again, adding added pressures, which is beyond your control. And obviously, with the local government review devolution, I can't imagine we'll have much more than a 2-year funding settlement. But you just never know, because we'll be past 2028 then. So I wonder what they will be doing. But again, if Mr. Borrell's got any more updates on that, it'd be interesting to hear from our scrutiny point of view. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Grocott first, then Councillor Curtis, and then I don't know if there's anybody else, but that would probably expect Councillor Curtis to wind up. So Councillor Grocott first.
Yes, just a quick comment, obviously following up on Councillor Crump's concerns about the demographics of the people responding to this survey. I mean, obviously with, was it over 30% of them being, over 50% being over 60 years old, I mean, you know, perhaps if it was a younger demographic, I would have got more support for my splash pad. Thank you.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. I don't have the data in front of me. I can check. But I think Councillor Crump, he's extrapolating the fact that there are 31% of residents over 70, 25% over 60, as being that increase of the 260%.
No, I didn't say that.
No,
but
I think
had you got a breakdown of
what I will do, if Councillor Crump would find it helpful, will be to look back at last year's survey to see what percentages there are in the various age groups. It may be that most of the increase has been in the older age range. It may be in the young, but I think that will be useful information. I'll be able to find that out for you, Councillor Crump.
That would be very helpful, Councillor Curtis. That's what I was asking for, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you like to kind of, unless we've got any other questions, would you like to be able to outline the proposals and the recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So,
are you proposing the recommendations?
I'll propose these recommendations. There are 2 recommendations to the Cabinet, which you can see on page 61. And there are 3 recommendations to Council. I will read them out if you'd like me to, but I'm sure we've all got them in front of us. So I think Councillor Coles is saying I don't need to read them. So I would like to propose those recommendations to Cabinet and to Council. Thank you, Leader.
And do we have a seconder to those, Councillor Gist? And are all of you in favour of these moving, the first 2 that to be agreed Cabinet, and the final 3 to be recommendations that go to Council? Are you all in agreement with that? Agreed. Okay, thank you. Now, moving on to the Climate Change and Nature Recovery Strategy, the 2025 Delivery Plan, which is on page 131 to 186, and that comes under my portfolio. Now, I would like to start by just saying how much I appreciate the work that has gone into this by the officers concerned. We didn't used to have a dedicated climate change officer, and we now have two, and they have done some terrific amount of work. What we have to do now is we have a recommendation to approve it, but it will enable it to for progress for a consideration for adoption by the council. So the questions today will be questions that on the particular strategy that is there anything that we need to change before it kind of goes to council, or any comments either pro or con on the actual strategy itself. Councillor Coles.
No, I think I don't have a question. Better? Oh, I wasn't allowed to touch it, but there you go. I just wanted to agree with you, Leader, that there's a spectacular amount of work here, and it's definitely helping our strategy moving forward with the work we want to do on that, informing all the things like housing and the other projects we intend to address. So I would just like to join with you in thanking the officers involved in producing it.
Councillor Passingham.
I was slightly disappointed in the space accorded to nature recovery. It's been over a year since we passed a nature emergency for the district, but there seems to just be 3 or 4 points at the back of the page really that are really constructive. And is the council going to put any more resources into this area?
Yes, some extra resources have been put into the area. One was the adoption by this district council of the nature reserve on the outskirts of Stratford, but the other one has been the considerable amount of money that has gone into the free trees for farmers, and also the work with the Heart of England forest as well, that I was due to be there at a tree planting, I think it was yesterday, but I unfortunately couldn't be there because of other meetings, but quite a lot of work has gone on there. A lot of it depends upon the partnerships of the people that we work with, whether it's the Wildlife Trust, the Heart of England Forest, and other organisations. There is considerable work going on there. Say the number of the trees that have been planted has been really upped in this last year or so. What this strategy is going to be needed for is to make sure that we've given the legitimacy to our officers to be able to take this further and faster. Councillor Franchely.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to say, talking about nature recovery, there is a small exemplar community activity in Stratford on Somerton Way, which is actually county land which is being developed for biodiversity and increasing the number of invertebrates and vertebrates and birds. And information, data is being collected. It just seems to me that is a kind of small intervention that we should be looking to encourage across the district. Because if we can actually have areas like that that start to link up, you're making corridors for biodiversity. Thank you.
And the actual action plan, which is on pages 184 to 185, does have quite a few actions on managing our land for nature, which is going to be taking us forward over the next year. So that is, that we need this kind of to go through to make sure that we can start, some of it was delivered during the year, the projects were initiated, and some of it will come to be completed by March 2025, which is coming up, but some of it is to be a rolling ecological management for the next few years. Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Leader. Seeing as my portfolio has the two largest contributors to the carbon footprint for the council, as in 48% for transport, as in the refuse vehicles, and 34% being the gas and electricity use in leisure centres. I'd just like to say how pleased I am that moving forward, the introduction of HVO has worked to considerably decrease that carbon footprint, and also that we've got an ongoing programme now of introducing solar panels to all 5 leisure centres, and that we are looking at adding heat pumps to these to facilitate further decarbonisation.
Yes, thank you. I actually chased up with one of the shared officers that we share with both Warwick District Council and Stratford District Council, and who works also with Warwickshire County Council, about the progress on the electric vehicle charging structure and strategy, which is they've been working on that for the last year. There will be something coming forward on that as well. So I'm just very, we've got an exciting year ahead of us. Councillor Wiley-Hoggins.
I hate to point out the fact that the east of the district is not benefiting from the HVO, so is it still fine to spend that kind of money when such a huge swathe of this district is not benefiting from that, and not benefiting or experiencing that or having that HVO, in so much as the £250,000, they're not seeing any perceived benefit from that. Thank you.
Councillor Grocott.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Wiley-Hoggins. I mean, this is the reduction of the carbon footprint, which is the amount of emissions going into the atmosphere in the district, and this is not pertain to a certain area. So we are reducing our carbon footprint across our district fleet, and this is a percentage. And obviously the whole district is receiving the benefit of reduced carbon footprint. Thank you.
And it is to be noted, of course, that it's an interim thing to move towards alternative sources of energy as soon as possible, as the contracts are renewed. Now we have a recommendation then that is that. To approve the climate change and nature recovery strategy, enabling to progress for consideration for adoption by the council. I will propose that. Now, would anybody like to second that? Councillor Coles. Do we have before us any other are you all happy to support and move this forward? And this will obviously come up for debate again at council. Thank you very much indeed. Moving on, then, we have the Shakespeare's England and Local Visitor Economy Partnership arrangements, the update on, which is on pages 187 to 200, and this falls under the portfolio of Councillor Coucher.
Thank you. Obviously, our visitor economy is one of the most important economic strands that we have in our district. And we have supported the Shakespeare's England organisation for many years, and it has provided an extremely important function. After the Dubois review, the government of the day decided that we would move towards local visitor economy partnerships, or LVEPs as they are known, and Shakespeare's England is to be combined with Coventry partnership, and that progress has been ongoing now for some time. The purpose of this report is really to ensure that we are continuing on that path, and to provide finance for that going forward. Clearly, obviously, local government reorganisation has come onto the horizon, and whether LVEPs will continue on in their planned form, we do not know. But we have to actually support the current direction of travel. So we have a quite complex recommendation here, basically to note that the progress made by the Coventry and Warwickshire Local Visitor economy partnership and continue to support the development of the partnership in its aim to provide governance and strategic support to the tourism sector across Coventry and Warwickshire, be noted. We should remember the tourist sector is not just about visitors, this is also about business tourism, which is also extremely important for this district. Number two, that the progress made by Shakespeare's England since the last funding period, August 22 to July 24, be noted. And I would really draw your attention to the fact there's been a 13% increase in membership of Shakespeare's England, which is a very encouraging figure going forward. And three, that the revised grant conditions attached as Appendix 1 to cover the period from April 25 to March 26, subject also to these being agreed by Warwick District Council, and delegates authority to the Head of Development in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and economic development to make any minor modifications that Warwick may request, because we are doing this very much in partnership with Warwick, and they are putting in the same amount of money as we are in terms of taking this forward. So you'll note, certainly in the financial position, there is only a budget really for one more year, because at this time we really don't know what the long-term future will be, but also we are hoping that actually this LVEP will become financially self-supporting and won't necessarily need the same degree of financial support from this authority. So I'd move, Chair, those recommendations.
And do we have any questions from anybody? Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Councillor Junior. We did speak about this at overview scrutiny. Got no real recommendations, but overview scrutiny will continue to monitor the economic health of the district, particularly the main tourism destinations, because when we look at revenue and monitoring reports, there has been indication of some decline. And I know, Councillor Coucher, we spoke about it, not the one on Friday, the previous one where we were speaking about the health of the town centres in particular, but other areas as well. And we felt that we needed to monitor this on a regular basis, especially in terms of footfall. I think that was the other thing we were talking about as well. So I think Councillor Coucher is aware of our thoughts on the matter, and again, we will review this on a regular basis, and if necessary, ask Councillor Coucher to come back and see us. Thank you.
Do I have any more questions? I mean, to just be able to support them going forward, and just hope that the progress that has been made by the partnership continues, and that we're already seeing a recovery of the tourism market, and not only to the Stratford, but covering the whole of South Warwickshire. It's that is welcomed. So give them our support for going forward, and we should wish them well in their progress. So thank you very much indeed for that. Now we've got a proposal for the recommendations.
Yes.
Yep. And a seconder, Councillor Gorcott. Are you all in favour of that the recommendations? All right. Thank you. Agreed. Moving forward, we now have the Integrated Transport Strategy and Action Plan, pages 201 to 216. And again, this comes under the portfolio of Councillor Coucher.
I'm very pleased to bring this report to Cabinet, and hopefully that we are able to note its content and to adopt this in our preparation of the South Warwickshire Local Plan. It's often been stated that Stratford doesn't know what it wants, and particularly in relation to transport matters, and it's one of the reasons why the transport group was actually set up by the strategic partnership and other partners. I've sat on that body for the last 18 months, and I am impressed with the work that it has done, the amount of thought that it's given to how we're actually going to improve the transport arrangements in and around Stratford. This is, I think, particularly the strategic diagram gives a really good blueprint in terms of what is required for the town. I would stress that this is looking at some form of western bypass is extremely important for Stratford because that unlocks many of the other environmental improvements that we would want to seek within the town. I would emphasise, Chair, that this is not a re-examination of the South Western Relief Road, which I think is universally reviled and hopefully is a dead duck, but actually is looking at something which will actually provide a real solution for us within the town. It should be noted that the County Council has noted this report, as has Stratford Town Council, and I know that the local MP is also supportive as well. And I think it's really important that the District Council is in line with those other three people/bodies, so that when we go to government, which I'm sure we will have to do, to seek financial support for this, we can demonstrate that we are united in terms of what we're doing and what we're looking for. So I would urge members to support the recommendation here, to note the action plan and to take it into account in our preparation of the South Warwickshire local plan.
Okay, Councillor Passingham.
I don't want to repeat what I've just said, but by adopting this, it would be adopting it's got to be a large road that is being proposed here. And I think, I'm not sure if the leader said you would reconsider this at one point during what you said, but I do hope you will reconsider.
Could I just draw attention in the recommendation, what the actual recommendation says? The recommendation says the content of the Integrated Transport Strategy and Action Plan be noted and taken into account in the preparation of the South Warwickshire local plan. This is a transport strategy that's been produced in partnership between a lot of businesses, a lot of organisations, some of which, some of the proposals in here are outside the full control of the district council. Many are within the control of the county council. Some have had control of the town council, but some of it, a lot of it, will require government funding as well, and particularly funding from any developers that develop in the district as well. So you know, it's it is to be noted at this point. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just ask a little bit of clarification in point 16 on page 202? I'm just slightly intrigued by the final sentence here. The future provision of an orbital route could provide an opportunity to review the car parking arrangements. Is the orbital route the same as the proposed bypass? Or I'm just a little clarification on that point. I'm afraid I don't quite understand it.
Should I have an answer from Councillor Coucher now, or Councillor Wally-Hoggins? Do you want to come in first, and then we can get response for both of your questions? Councillor Wally-Hoggins.
Yes, Councillor Coucher referred to the South Western Relief Road as being reviled and a dead duck. And I would suggest that the proposals here for the £250,000 to be spent on alternative routes will be precisely that as well. Because ultimately, the South Western Relief Road was actually a very good proposal, otherwise those houses wouldn't have gone ahead at Long Marston, but it was a dead duck because there was no funding available. There will be no funding available for what you're proposing either. You're spending £7 million on you're proposing to reopen the Honeybourne line. Let us not forget that will incur a £7 million subsidy per annum. It will also include compulsory purchase, and it will affect the Greenway. So, yeah, I think you need to remember that word reviled. We certainly won't forget it with what some of these proposals are here. Of course, there needs to be a decent and proper transport strategy, but I do say this will be a dead duck. It's all very well having surveys to present to government, and I'm sure they'll clap beautifully for you and say, thank you so much for spending taxpayers' money on this, but we're not going to give you any money for that road anyway. Thank you very much indeed.
I think, yeah, Councillor Coucher.
I think in relation to the orbital route, one of our problems that we have is clearly the River Avon that bisects Stratford, and with two very significant pinch points with the two bridges that we have. Actually, by providing a road around Stratford, it will allow various environmental improvements to take place, including parking strategy, particularly park and ride, becomes more effective if roads are less congested as they are currently at the moment. So that I think that's the reason why that sentence is there. I think the Southwestern Relief Road, and I'm interested to hear what Councillor Wally-Hoggins has actually said in relation to that. I think there's very little support within Stratford for the development of that road, which would have a very severe environmental detriment to particularly residents on the southwestern edge of the town. It was not really a route that was chosen as a result of a proper study. It was basically a developer proposal that came forward, and I know that we have still an existing planning application for that road is still live, but I do not believe that has any prospect of going forward. At least we're going to now do a proper considered study, and as you have said, Leader, we will have the data and evidence, I think, in terms of how various options may work as a result of doing that study, which I think is very, very important. Councillor Wally-Hoggins also made mention of the Stratford to Honeybourne Railway. No decision has been taken in relation to that to date. We have one feasibility study done. I think the recommendations that there's still an awful lot more work to be done to evaluate exactly what role that could take at the moment. So I think to say that there's a decision being made in relation to that is not true. We have not got that far in relation to that.
John Kerford, who's Head of Development, would you like to kind of clarify a few things as well at this point?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so paras 1.6 through to 1.8, there's just some commentary on the SDC only actions that have been identified in this strategy that's been prepared by the Town Transport Group. The reference to the orbital route there is, it's, I suppose, alluding to bypassing that, but it's in the context of parking. So in Stratford Town, if you come in from the south, generally you look for a car park on the south because you can't get around the town to find another car park, and equally if you come in from the north, you find a car park on the north. And what that means is that splitting car parks between long stay only and short stay only is very difficult, because if all your long stay car parks in the other end of town, people in that side of town can't get them. So that's what that's about. But I think this is a really good piece of work by the Town Transport Group, as Councillor Couch has said, just to start to think holistically about the transport in the town and what that sort of range of measures we need to think about. And this isn't just SDC actions, this is the county, this is government as well. Thinking how do we tackle that in a collaborative and holistic manner. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Just to Councillor Passingham's points, this document, as well as the investigation into other options around the south of Stratford, are critical component parts of what will be the South Warwickshire Local Plan, and the stated aim of that plan is climate resilience and the aspiration to net zero. So I think, albeit that development does incur a carbon cost, the idea behind these particular parts of strategies is to ensure that we have a resilient plan in place for the whole of the district, and that's one of the reasons that I think they're incredibly important to get through at this stage, so that strategy is there to ensure that document's robust into the future.
And we do have to make sure that, as part of the South Warwickshire plan, that we've got all the data that comes in to make sure that we can put solid cases for public transport, solid cases for cycleways, particularly off-road cycleways for families and children, making sure that we've got looked at all the options, that we can put a solid case to government, and remembering that the South Warwickshire Plan will be over a 25-year period, which will give more time to be able to get and persuade government to do a long-term investment plan in this district, rather than the very short-term options and plans that have happened over the last few years. So we do need to make sure that that is going forward. Councillor Crump, and then we will go to the
I'll be brief as
finisher.
possible. Yeah, again, we talked about this on Friday. I sometimes wonder whether we will get a long-term funding from government on this. I worked in local government for many, many years, and promises of long-term funding for things didn't necessarily materialise, so it'll be interesting what pressure we can put on this, shall we say. I think when we spoke about this, and Mr Kerford was there on Friday, I think there are lots of good things in this we can learn from, and some good ideas, and I think that's what John implied we were likely to be doing. I know that Councillor Keithy wasn't particularly, almost disagreed with Councillor Passagun about the Hornibourne line and the £7 million subsidy, etc. So I do think we need to make sure we prioritise how we use our resources, how we spend our money, and whatever research we do it properly and is meaningful and adds value to the South Warwickshire local plan and provides evidence for us to make decisions upon. So I think that is important, and I think that lots of things that were pretty reasonable, and OSC were really, on the whole, supportive of the strategy, but with some caveats that, again, we'll be keeping an eye on, and I'm sure Councillor Coucher and Mr Kerford will talk up to at scrutiny in the future about. So, yeah, that was the feedback. It was a really interesting debate, to be fair.
And we have to thank everybody for actually being able to come together. The transport group in the town has managed to pull together representatives of the county council, the district council, the town council, and other organisations to be able to have the conversation. And the recommendation going forward is to be noted and taken into account in the preparation of the South Warwickshire local plan. Councillor Coucher, are you moving that, yes, that recommendation? Do we have a seconder for that Councillor Adam? Thank you very much indeed. And are you all in favour that this is noted and put forward into the South Warwickshire local plan? Thank you very much indeed. All agreed. Thank you. We now move on to another item, which is the Grant for Local Needs Housing Scheme in Claverdon. And I know that this is the portfolio of Councillor Coles, but there is a public speaker that I would like to, has registered to speak on this issue beforehand. So as soon as the introduction is done, you can come forward, but as soon as the introduction is done, then we will have a comment from Neil Gilliver, who is the Warwickshire Rural Housing Association representative and he'll do his own introduction when it comes to that. But if Councillor Coles, you can introduce it first.
Thank you, Leader. So, as you can see before you, the recommendation is for the award of a grant, and having been awarded, that the capital programme is amended accordingly, which is a rather low and rather uninteresting declaration of what actually is a very good, I believe, programme that has been proposed here. We do work well, as we do with many of our strategic partnerships, with the Warwickshire Rural Housing Association, and I would bring your attention in the paper to what is actually going to be delivered as a result of this grant. This is the result of a set of houses being built into an additional one, which, I'm sorry, I've got so many underlining, I can't find the relevance there. It is driven by the local housing needs within the rural community. The project is being carried out by the Warwickshire Rural Housing Association, and we've been asked to support this development with a grant which will be used to meet and go beyond expected new future home standard and beyond current building regulations. In particular, and I do have to read this out because I think it's very important, all the homes being developed will have air source heat pump technology. All the homes will be installed with PV solar panels to generate electricity. All homes will have solar batteries installed to enable unused energy to be stored. All the homes will have an EPC rating of A, and all the homes will be installed with EV charging points and have the benefit of home working spaces, in addition to which, there will be biodiversity measures, including woodland tree planting and wildflower meadows. And I think if you look at that, this is what we will be adding to these homes. So this meets both our council's need, because good homes improve people's health and well-being, and that is fundamental to what this administration believes in. And it will also work towards the council meeting our climate change obligations, but not just our obligations, our requirements that we have made to ourselves to carry through. This future-proofs homes for the people who will live there. It gives decent homes for families, and it gives families the opportunity to stay in their area, which is something that I think we all believe very strongly in. It is something that we've been working very well. And I do have to, at this point, pay tribute to the team who have been working on this, who have the resilience of titans, because not only do they deliver these projects, which are very long and drawn out, but they also have me jumping up and down in the background asking for more. So I would just, well done, team. Good work. I think it also is very useful to focus on the need of when you move into a new house, this house will work with you for the future. We are future-proofing these homes for the energy need as they go forward. And I think we are all aware of how difficult it can be for some residents when you have old housing stock, which is not well insulated, where the electricity bills are causing concern. This is something that simply will not affect the residents going into. There's good energy management, future-proofing on these homes, and I can congratulate the Housing Association on the work they're doing, and I think it is an extremely important part of what we do to support that. So I would ask you to accept these recommendations.
And at this point, if I'd like to bring in Mr. Gilliver, if you could introduce yourself and you have been reminded that you have 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Neil Gilliver, the Development Manager for Warwickshire Rural Housing Association. We specialise in the development and management of homes for local people in rural communities across Warwickshire. We own almost 600 homes, over 70% of which are located in settlements across the Stratford-on-Avon area. So together with our key partners, including Warwickshire Rural Community Council, Stratford District Council, and representatives of the local community, a significant number of high-quality rural local needs affordable homes have been delivered. Stratford District Council top-up grant funding has been fundamental to Warwickshire Rural Housing Association's track record of delivering high-quality affordable homes. We are very thankful to this authority for its significant financial investment over many years. We are pleased to bring to the Council yet another opportunity to deliver more affordable homes in the village of Claverden. We've been working with this community since the Housing Needs Survey was completed by Warwickshire Rural Community Council. Following years of extensive local consultation, we've secured planning permission to deliver 10 affordable homes for rent and shared ownership, which will be prioritised to local people in perpetuity. If the Council elect to support our bid, the necessary finance will be in place to facilitate a very high quality development that all partners can be proud of. The development is designed to the emerging future home standard, including measures to significantly reduce carbon emissions, which in turn addresses the Council's priorities to tackle the climate emergency and fuel poverty. So here are the key items. All homes will achieve an EPC A rating and will include the following green infrastructure: heating using the latest renewable air source heat pump technology, PV solar panels and solar storage enabling 24-hour access to free renewable energy, electric vehicle charging points for all properties. The homes will include measures to facilitate positive health and well-being outcomes, all homes to meet and exceed the national space standards, all homes to include home working zones. The bungalows will be constructed to the higher accessibility standards, including wet rooms. The development will achieve a biodiversity net gain with new woodland planting, wildflower meadows and wetland habitat. I'd like to thank you all for listening and hope that we can secure your support to take forward this exciting opportunity.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm heartened by this. As you know, we've been waiting for the Future Home Standard to be updated for quite some considerable time. There's been, we are hopeful that it will be coming soon. But there has been a couple of court challenges as well over the building regulations and whether or not we can include them in the local plan to be able to set this as a standard. Not only the housing standard, but even above. Some councils across the country have been able to do that, and then we had a ministerial statement, Minister Gove at the time, saying that councils should not go above, they should not encourage this kind of standard in their local plan, and that is the case that has been gone to court. So I hope that this one will set a standard locally that we can then encompass and replicate in our local plan. So I look forward to this happening as a standard for which all housing, whether it's a social housing or private housing, should be able to reach in future. So thank you very much indeed for giving us the presentation and for being able to show that this standard is achievable. Any questions that anybody wants to raise? Councillor Curtis.
Not so much a question, thank you, Leader, as just say I think this is another excellent project with the Warwickshire Rural Housing Association. We had a similar project was it in November or October? Councillor Colson, correct me. We want to see more affordable homes delivered across the district, and I think this is an excellent partnership. I'd like to thank everyone for their hard work in bringing it forward.
Councillor Passingham.
Yeah, I endorse that entirely. It sounds a fantastic scheme, and let's hope that the home standards will be improved soon enough for us to incorporate schemes like this, and every housing scheme will be like this for our local plan.
Yeah, there's certainly high standards already set within the South Warwickshire local plan. It's how far we will be allowed to go, and I say needing the future home standards, and clarification on the building regulations, etc., will be most welcome. Councillor Morley-Hoggins.
Yes, I'm delighted to see this coming to the fore. I'm also equally delighted that the scheme also includes bungalows, because as we know, we have a very ageing population, and this will, I'm sure, be of great comfort that we are looking at that in particular. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, indeed. It's certainly one of the things that I don't know whether. We certainly need to be able to enable people to downsize, and that is welcomed also. Do we have any more comments that anybody wants to make, or any more questions that anybody wants to make on this item? Because if not, then we could go to the recommendations, and it is to award the grant. Councillor Coucher, it's your portfolio. Do you want to kind of, in jointly with Councillor Coles, you share the portfolio, share this under her portfolio? Do you both want to one second forward?
I'm happy for Councillor Coles to propose, and I will second it.
Okay, all right. That is excellent partnership working between the two of you. So thank you very much indeed. I do appreciate that. Yes, and so we've got the proposer and the seconder that the award of the grant be given, and that the capital programme be amended accordingly. Does the rest of the cabinet agree and endorse that? Okay, or all agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Moving forward then, we have now the asset management strategy, and this falls under the portfolio of Councillor Guest.
Thank you, Leader. This is an updated asset management strategy updated from June 2016, which seeks to establish sound principles for the management of SDC-owned property and assets over the next 5 years. Two just key points I wanted to highlight. It suggests forming a strategic asset group to oversee the management of the council's built land and assets. And it also says that we should consider devolving relevant assets to town and parish councils, as they are the closest to the community and have the ability to levy precepts to address the needs of their local area, and that's as per the Localism Act. So I'd happy to propose the recommendation that the asset management strategy as attached Appendix 1 be adopted.
Do we have any questions on the asset management strategy? Okay. You haven't got any questions? Okay. So would you like to propose the recommendation?
Yes, Leader, of course.
And Councillor Grocott will second it. All approval? Okay, thank you. The Cabinet approves that. The next item is the Growing Opportunities Plan, pages 241 to 268, the progress report for 2024 of the plan that was started from 2023 and going on to 2025. So we have Councillor Coles as a portfolio holder here. Would you like to introduce this and take any questions?
Thank you, Leader. This report provides us with an opportunity to monitor the delivery of the action plan for the Growing Opportunities Plan for 23 to 25. The report enclosed details the status of all the activities, and we are also making a number of proposed adjustments to the action plan to make sure it remains relevant, deliverable and coherent. And I think there are a couple of main things to note. One is this is an extremely good example of our very successful working with partners across all areas to deliver change for our residents. And I think also the adjustments show how much this is a work in progress. It is a living document, and it reacts to changes, to needs, to different requirements, or we find that there's a better way to do things or a better way to measure things. So it is an indication that this is an active working document, which I think is also a very, very good thing to note, because sometimes it's so easy to see something past, pop it on a shelf and revisit it in 4 years, whereas this is showing it's a very, very active work in progress. And as such, I'm happy to recommend that the report be noted and that the revisions to the plan, the action plan detailed in the report, be agreed. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Anybody have any questions that either the portfolio holder or officer can answer at this point? Just one of the things that because I welcome the fact that this plan is the result of a considerable amount of work between lots and lots of organisations all working together. I know that we met VASA recently, and I know that there are other organisations that are involved in this one. But going forward, we've got considerable challenges ahead of us. This is an action plan for this year, but we've got considerable challenges ahead of us. I noted, for example, the government is preparing a UK-wide 10-year child poverty strategy for release during this year. And that will presumably go into the action plan for the coming year. We've got some details of the work available done so far, but it would be useful to understand that more as you develop that, going forward. So perhaps maybe just give us a little bit of indication as to where that will go.
Well, we obviously, as you said, the plan goes to 25, so we are scheduled May to start the plan 2, and obviously that will form, anything like that would form an important part of what we discuss with our partners. It would feed into the information, and also having fed in, the work we do will then start to produce the actions we want to take to address those. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, all I would say on the child poverty strategy is that it will no doubt point us in certain directions, and we will incorporate those into the plan as required. Probably by the end of this year or very early next year, we'll have another iteration of the Growing Opportunities Action Plan that will come to Cabinet in the same way the last one did. Probably, accompanying another update. and you'll get an opportunity to think about and endorse our suggestions for sort of the period 26 to 29, which will include the child poverty strategy related actions.
And some of the actions that will come from this Growing Opportunity Funds covers other portfolios. I know, for example, making sure that people have active travel options. One of the things that I'm particularly that I particularly want to do more of is to make sure that young people have the youth service. It unfortunately has been reduced quite considerably over the last few years. But making sure that young people do have an alternative is presumably that will also be going forward and be developed as part of the tackling and so giving more support for young people. Okay. Any other questions? Sarah Willie-Higgins, Councillor Willie-Higgins, sorry.
Councillor Worley-Higgins, thank you. I just wanted to ask, what amendments have been made to this document with regard to, now that the winter fuel allowance has now been all but gone, and for those residents that are just over the amount, that means that they're no longer eligible for the winter fuel allowance? I know that some of them are facing a desperate situation. Thank you.
Yeah, I can come back on that. As you're probably aware, there's a £250,000 per year cost of living crisis related allocation of funding. A significant contribution goes from that to our work with Act on Energy that supports people in fuel poverty, and a significant contribution from that goes to support the Citizens Advice Reach Out and Help provision, which is a kind of in-depth analysis of people's kind of financial challenges that goes beyond their transactional kind of work that exists through their telephone service. And that funding is, continuing into 25, 26, and then 26, 27. So those two kind of work streams that will support people who find themselves in difficulty as a result of the winter fuel allowance changes. Sustains, which is great news. In addition to that, the Social Inclusion Partnership have done a great deal of work promoting the there was a deadline recently around claiming for people who were previously beneficiaries of the winter fuel allowance. That deadline has been projected across the Social Inclusion Partnerships networks, and we hope, and I think we have seen, that people have made efforts to receive assessments to make sure their entitlements are being observed, in financial terms.
And I think there is money in the budget proposal as well for helping cost of living. There's considerable amount going into that as well. So thank you very much indeed for that. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. It's just a question of clarification, really. It's just, I think I mentioned this previously, but on page 246, 59, the walking, cycling, running routes, it shows current status as green, but the date is being amended to next December, and it's unlikely to achieve target. I just wonder, to me there seems a slight contradiction between it being rag-rated green, but it's unlikely to achieve its target. That seems a contradiction that I can't quite get my head round.
Yeah, I've got the same answer as I think I provided previously, but when we took this cut of our position on each of these actions, it was very early in January. The status of the action going into that meeting was perceived as green. I think we took a decision at that meeting that it was unlikely to be delivered by March 2025. I think we could have changed it to amber or red, I suppose, but the decision was made to extend the deadline, and retain the green status. I hope that makes it clear why we...
Can I come back on that, please?
Yeah.
So the green is to the amended date of December 26.
Yes, and it was also green, you know, perceived as green sort of for the period, the quarter before January this year, because I think the intention was to do some work on it during that quarter, and that it would be completed by the March deadline. But by the time we got to January, insufficient work had been done, and therefore it was still green. But we wanted to retain the green going forward.
Thank you very much indeed. So, Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Leader. Just further question. On page 266 and 267, you've got the community builder actions, and you specifically mentioned 2 wards, Bishop and Clopton. I think I mentioned this before. I mean, obviously, as the ward in between those 2, but more generally, going forward, is the community builder programme going to be dispersed district-wide rather than just in those 2 wards?
There is an opportunity coming up for interested parishes, town councils, communities to work with a delivery partner to access additional community builder funding. We're going to have an open tendering opportunity, probably with a selected number of communities. So yes, in theory, other wards, other settlements, other communities could apply for that funding, therefore, thereby to employ a community builder. But obviously, there's only one pot of funding, and we won't be able to fund all of those wards, I don't think, to have a community builder.
Okay, unless there's any other questions, which I can't see any others, the recommendations are that would you like to kind of read the recommendation out and then put it to the agenda?
Right. The recommendation is that the report of the Growing Opportunities Plan progress report be noted, and that the revisions to the Growing Opportunities Plan action plan detailed in that report be agreed. I'd like to propose that.
You're proposing, and we have Councillor Grocott as a seconder. So are you all in favour of that? Thank you very much indeed. We're now moving on to the Member Development Working Group Forward Plan. And, sorry, my apologies. The issues arising from Overview and Scrutiny Committee come first, and then we move on to the Member Development Working Group Plan. So, Councillor Crump, have you any issues that arise from Overview and Scrutiny?
How can you miss me out, Councillor Junid? Yeah, there's a couple of things. First of all, I should have perhaps included it earlier when Councillor Curtis was speaking about the budget. We had the Task and Finish group from Overview and Scrutiny on the budgets, just to report back that it was done in a very amicable way, fair and reasonable, and all political groups had worked well together and each put forward sound, clear and achievable budget proposals, and I think Councillor Curtis will agree with that. So, and we did make accommodation because I knew he had to leave on Friday, so thank you for that, Councillor Curtis. The other thing, there's 2 other points I need to raise. We felt that in light of local government review devolution, that any reports coming to scrutiny and perhaps other bodies such as Cabinet, etc., could do with a heading LGR devolution implications section. Whether they have been taken into account, even it says there are no implications on this proposal for local government review, just so we know about it. So that was the other thing. And the main item that we talked about for about an hour and a half was to do with the consultation on the Ellen Badger beds, the community rehabilitation beds. Now that was quite challenging. It was almost like herding cats, because we were trying to just talk about the consultation on the community rehabilitation beds, and sometimes we meandered like the River Itchen, Lewis, and we had to try and stick to the point. So really interesting debate, lots of information, and we had 5 members from the ICB there, and we asked questions about how the options were reached, the effects on other services, and what healthcare provision might look like in Shipston should there be no community beds placed there. I want to say councillor, and I'll say both councillor and MP Pertegala. We had a statement from her, which we felt we could include as a recommendation to Cabinet and the portfolio holder when they do the response to the ICB, that we would ask you include in your response as part of a consultation. I will read it out briefly, but Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong has got this anyway, so you don't have to make too many notes about this. And we're asking you if to include this, but again, it's within your gift to do so or not to do so. I'll read this out briefly, so I do apologise. That in its response to the Commentary on Warwickshire Integrated Care Board's consultation on community rehabilitation beds, the Cabinet includes the following. The options fail to take into consideration the rurality of our area with all the challenges that rural communities currently face, including unreliable public transport. We need solutions that reflect the priorities of those who use and depend on these services, including future-proofing our healthcare needs, not proposals that fall short of what our community deserves. The ICB's preferred option to remove beds from the Ellen Badger cannot be allowed to go ahead. If they have their way, the Ellen Badger will be reduced to a hospital in name only. Halting this disastrous proposal must not come at the expense of beds elsewhere in Warwickshire, such as Stratford Hospital, as suggested in the first option. We urge the ICB to resubmit a consultation which looks at all services and types of beds, and to listen to the representations and meaningfully consider any alternative proposal and options for local beds put forward by the impacted communities. So that was a unanimous decision of the committee. So I know it's a lot to take in, so yeah, we're asking the portfolio to endure our recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, and I sat in on the back of it, and it was good to hear the debate that took place and the representations from the ICB as well. And it was good to see that everybody came together on that issue. So thank you very much indeed, and that will be put to the portfolio holder for her response. I don't know if you'd like to come in at this stage.
Yes, well, really, I would just like to thank everyone, and there have been many, many representations, and I've spoken to a great deal of people on the subject. But I would like to thank everyone for their contribution, which I will take into consideration when I write my response to the consultation. Thank you.
Councillor Passingham.
I welcome this recommendation, obviously being a councillor for Shipston, and there's a lot of feeling and concern in Shipston about the Ellen Badger Hospital, as everyone knows. But the Overview and Scrutiny Committee suggested I forward the consultation response of the medical practice in Shipston, the doctors' practice, which I've circulated by email to all the cabinet holders, and it's 2 pages, well, 1.5 pages, and it's a total endorsement of reinstating the community beds in Shipston and reopening it as a community hospital. So I hope the members of the cabinet have time to read it.
Councillor Coles, you wanted to come in.
Yes, thank you. I have received it, plus many, many others, as you can imagine. I think what I would say with this consultation is I have received that, but I would urge, as with any consultation, that everybody makes their own representation and their own answers and contribution to that consultation. I think the only way, and I think it's something we're experiencing with the South Warwickshire Local Plan consultation, the only way to have a really effective consultation is to make sure that we get as many people as possible to respond, to give their response, make their voices heard, and ensure that you have a really wide evidence base of what has been given into that consultation. And as I said, everything I've received, I've given due consideration to, and I will take consideration, but I don't think people should rely on my response to the consultation. They should be making their own as well. I think that's the proper way to do this. Thank you.
Yeah, just making sure that as many people as possible respond is always, you know, to make sure that everybody, it's not just one point of view, that there's many as possible put their views forward. Who else wanted to come in? Councillor Oyley-Huggins.
Yes, I thought it was a good debate on Friday. I thought some very salient questions were asked, but also what has been heartening over the weekend, because obviously I represent a ward that feeds into the Ellen Badger and all the medical facilities in Shipston. What has been heartening over the weekend is that as a result of a particular question that I asked about being able to respond in writing, there seems to be a galvanisation over the weekend that now all residents can go to certain places at certain times where they will be helped to complete the online consultation or request with a free phone line, it seemed to me, to be able to request a written copy of the survey as well. So again, the OSC meeting on Friday and the questions were asked there has really had a very positive effect on this wider consultation, and for that I think we should be proud of ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and it does show the power of this district council to be able to put cases forward, because we know our local area. I may represent the local area. That might be something that will come up in the debate this afternoon. So thank you very much indeed. We have now the recommendation. Are you you know, all happy with that coming forward? All received, and thank you very much indeed. Moving forward now, we have item 12, which is the Member Development Working Group Forward Plan, and we have to be able to consider this and make a recommendation on this one as well. I don't know who's taking this over, as Councillor Gist is taking this on as part of her portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I understand that this is a decision for Cabinet, so should, strictly speaking, be further under Part B. I just wanted to thank officers for their continued work with arranging training for members. It's very much appreciated, and it's no mean feat. And it's just for Cabinet to agree the Member Development Work Programme.
Thank you very much indeed. And one of the things that this council is very strong on is the training programmes that we put on for our councillors. We also promote and make sure that we know of other providers like the Local Government Association as well, and they have. I know that 3 of our cabinet have been to a Local Government Association training over the last week. So I really am very satisfied with the Member Development Working Group moving forward on proposing a development programme. So we have. Are you going to propose that this is adopted? Yes. Okay. And Councillor Grocott seconded. Are you all in approval of this as a cabinet? All in favour? Thank you. I haven't had no other matters raised with me. There's been no urgent business raised with me. So really, that is the end of this cabinet meeting. So thank you indeed for your attendance and for your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed.